It is a Christmas miracle because this episode 60, season slash possibly series finale of the Hawkeye Disney Plus series, shows you exactly why this is my favorite MCU Disney Plus series. It is so good because, I was honestly worried going into this episode. Seeing that obviously it was a longer episode, it was about an hour-long episode, and the longest MCU Disney Plus episode ever so far, but still they had a lot to do in this episode with Kingpin and Maya and Kate Bishop and Yelena, and there was just so much going on here, but they did it. They did it all and more. There was so much resolved in this episode, and while there were a few things that I weren't happy with, for the most part, I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and really makes me want a season 2 of Hawkeye on Disney Plus. So guys, we have got to go ahead and break down all the biggest moments and reveals from this episode of Hawkeye, episode 6, titled So This Is Christmas, which of course is a line from the classic Christmas song, Happy Christmas, the War is Over, by John Lennon, I think it was. Great. I mean, speaking of that, Christmas in this episode is on full effect because it's just so Christmassy, and I absolutely love it because honestly this year doesn't even feel like Christmas, even though it's like 3 days away, but I'm still excited, and this episode, it gets me in the Christmas spirit. So anyway, of course, quick spoiler warning, if you've not seen this episode, Hawkeye Disney Plus series, episode 6, you have been warned, and we're going to go and jump into this, where the episode begins with, they already get right into it, with Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, where we have a meeting between Mr. Fisk and Miss Bishop, where Eleanor, she basically confirms that yes, she took care of Armand, so she is the one that killed Armand, as we all figured out after that first episode, but she wants to leave this business to protect her daughter. So obviously Uncle Willie, he's not too happy about that, and he even says, you're making a big mistake here, nobody crosses the Kingpin, and yeah, she gets it by the end of this, as you see. But speaking of meetings with the Kingpin, we also have a meeting between Kingpin, Kazi, and Echo, where, of course, we know Kazi has kind of been, the number one henchman for Kingpin this whole time. He's the one that betrayed Echo, Maya, and basically is responsible for her father's death. So they're still trying to convince Maya to just move on, give up on Ronan, and then she says, alright, I'm going to take a couple days off, sorry for everything that I've done, and then you get this great moment between Kingpin and Maya where they say, I love you, because you really can see that almost father-daughter relationship there, and that Kingpin actually does really care about her, except clearly that means nothing after what he does in this episode, doesn't mean anything to her either, but then she walks off, and now he realized that all of his plans are falling apart. He's got an Avenger on his tail. Eleanor doesn't want to work with him anymore. And now Maya has betrayed him. So he wants to remind the people that this city belongs to him. So that's when he sends Kazi off on a special mission, as we see him play out later in the episode. But meanwhile, we have Kate and Clint, who actually react to footage from Yelena of that scene at the beginning, the meeting between Wilson Fisk and Eleanor Bishop. And I love this moment when Clint tells her, you're my partner, because this whole season he's been saying you're not a hero, you're just a kid, especially after episode 4 where he literally kicked her out and was in order to protect you, you can't be involved with any of this stuff. But he finally admits that yes, you're my partner, you're a great person, you are a superhero as well. So then they work on making some trick arrows. They got a magnet arrow, a Stark arrow, of course they got the other arrows that we had in the other episodes as well. And they go to Eleanor's Christmas party, which is where really all the action takes place in this episode. Because there's a lot of people here. For example, the LARPers are there in disguise to help out. Jack is also there out of jail. Yelena arrives. Eleanor arrives. And Kate actually confronts her. And she's like, oh, how'd you find out about that? And all that stuff. But then Kazi is actually across the street with a sniper. So he opens fire. And then we get some great battles between... We got Kate battling Yelena, just trying to keep her away from Clint. Because this whole time she's trying to get to Clint so that she can kill him. And they actually end up going out the window. Where then the tracksuits pop up. Jack whips out his sword to help, which was awesome because, in the comics he's the swordsman, and you've been getting hints of that throughout the season, but never really him actually in action as the swordsman, so I really like that. And again, hopefully we get a season 2 where we can see him in action more. The LARPers then suit up. Clint jumps out the window as well and actually ends up landing in the tree in Rockefeller Center. So that was a funny moment there. Then Kate shoots down the tree, so then, I mean, that's kind of destroying public property, but at least Clint is safe, so then he's out there on the ice. And then he rips off his white dress shirt that he wore to the party, and now he and Kate are both wearing comics accurate superhero suits as the two Hawkeyes. And of course, we know that these suits were created by the LARPers, as they mentioned a couple episodes ago. So we get this great battle of them just using trick arrow after trick arrow to fight the tracksuits. They even bring back the Pym arrow again at the end of this battle, this time doing the opposite of what it did before and actually shrinking the van of the bros. And then actually this owl like comes by and like picks them up, and oh, they're probably dead. The owl's probably gonna eat them. But yeah, so then everybody kind of splits up again, and this is where things get really interesting, because we have Kate going to look for Eleanor, Maya attacks Kazi, and Yelena attacks Clint. So first of all, we have Kingpin actually confronting Eleanor, and he's in actually like a really cool like red Hawaiian shirt, which is comics accurate. That is an outfit he wore in the comics, just like of course his outfit in the beginning of the episode, super comics accurate. And he confronts Eleanor, and basically you can kind of assume that he's there to kill her. But when she gets in her car, Kate actually arrives to save her, and she shoots Kingpin. But what's interesting though is that the arrow sticks right in his chest, but it doesn't affect him at all. It's like literally like he felt nothing. And that's so interesting because, I mean, it's not like he has any superpowers or anything, but maybe he does in this version. We don't know for sure. I am assuming it's a soft reboot of the character where it's like, it's not the same version of the character from the Netflix Daredevil series, but it's just played by the same actor. That's just what I'm assuming it is. That's kind of what makes the most sense here, which, you know, I'm all right with, just as long as they don't Disneyfy him too much. Which they clearly did at least a little bit in this episode. But I did really enjoy seeing that, like, invulnerability of this character, because that is a thing with him in the comics where he has, like, this super enhanced strength, and it makes sense. Just make sure he never goes on a diet, because then he'd lose that invulnerability. But yeah, he gets shot in the chest, doesn't faze him, until Eleanor literally runs him over, and again, doesn't affect him too much. He gets right up right after, but I love how he just like bounces right off the car. That was kind of funny. So like I said, he gets up, and then we get this great battle of Kate Bishop Hawkeye versus Kingpin, and she ends up beating him with one of her trick arrows, so that's great there, but he's still alive for now, as we see. Meanwhile, we have again that confrontation between Maya and Kazi, where Maya kills Kazi, which is something that made sense, but again, I wish he wasn't dead, and I'll talk about this more in the end of the episode when I talk about some things I want to see in a possible season 2, or at least the Echo spin-off series. So we'll talk about that when we get to that. Then, probably the best confrontation that we have here is Yelena Belova just battling Clint Barton, because she is here to kill him, not only because she was ordered to, but also because she wants to, because she thinks that he is responsible for Natasha's death. And she doesn't believe him when he says that Natasha sacrificed herself for Clint. So she just starts brutally beating him until Clint does the whistle that, of course, Yelena and Natasha did in the Black Widow movie, both the beginning and the end. So that's when she realized really how close Nat and Clint really were, and it kind of reminds her of the fact that, like, yes, that is the kind of thing that Natasha would do. She would sacrifice herself for others, and clearly she cared a lot about Clint, and then he even says that Nat told him a lot about Yelena, and she realized the truth, so then she walks away, and that's kind of the end of that character in this episode, which, again, we'll talk about her more at the end of the video. So now the cops show up to kind of try and arrest Eleanor and Kingpin, but unfortunately Kingpin has now escaped. He's now all of a sudden gone. But Kate lets the police arrest Eleanor, and she's like, "Oh, is this what heroes do? They let their mothers get arrested on Christmas?" It's like, "Whoa, I mean, you are a murderer, so she kind of has a reason." Well, speaking of Kingpin, like I said, he escapes, so obviously I was super happy in this moment, like, oh yeah, we're setting up for some cool stuff in the future with this character. But then Maya finds him and kills him. Now, when I first saw this moment, I absolutely hated it. I was like, why the hell would you bring back this character that everybody was so hyped about to literally kill him off in his debut episode? Well, I kind of got some explanation here, because first of all, I think it's pretty clear the way that he was killed, just because, like, you see that she's holding the gun to his face, and you hear her pull the trigger and the gun shoot, and you do kind of hear a sound effect of him, like, hitting the ground or whatever, but it's very clearly off screen. Like, literally she's about to pull the trigger, it goes off screen, and then you hear the sound of him getting shot. Well, whenever that happens, if you don't see a body, most likely they're not dead. And this is actually something that did happen in the comics, where Maya, when she first found out that Kingpin was responsible for her father's death, in the comics she did actually shoot Kingpin in the face, but then not only did he survive, but he actually ended up being blind after that. So, seems like that may possibly be the storyline that they're going with there. And that may be what's explored in the Echo Disney Plus series. I think that makes a lot of sense. It is kind of weird that they'd already jump into that with him being blind and everything before he even fights Daredevil, but hey, it's not that bad. But again, he was super distracting, like just thinking about the possibility that this character is dead. So it kind of distracted me for the rest of the episode. But hopefully we do get the return of Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, because he's just so good in that role. And then again, like I said, we just have the perfect resolution to this series, where it is Christmas Day, Clint fulfilled his promise, and he made it home in time for Christmas. So we have Clint showing up to the Barton farm, the Barton residence, and actually he brought Kate and Lucky with him. So we get this great reunion with his kids, and it really shows you how great of a father Clint is. Like, sure, he's not around much, but when he is, he really puts in the effort to be a great father. He brought gifts and new family members with Kate and Lucky, so that was great. And we also have him returning the Rolex, which of course has been a big mystery in this series the whole time, of like, who does this Rolex belong to? What is the importance of it? Well, he returned it to his wife, Laura Barton, where she turns it over, and it not only has the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo on it, confirming that she is apparently a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, but also it has the number 19 on it, which in the comics is the agent number of Bobby Morse, aka Mockingbird, which has been a big theory throughout these episodes that she would be a version of Mockingbird from the comics. Because in the comics, Mockingbird was another close teammate of Hawkeye, and at one point they actually ended up getting married, and they had this huge on and off again relationship and romance in the comics. So I thought that was really cool referencing that here, especially because that could have been just totally like call sign or code name, because of course in the comics Bobby Morse is Mockingbird, and I'd love to see hopefully that version of the character pop up in the MCU at some point in the future. She's a really cool character, but this allows us to have kind of that connection between Mockingbird and Hawkeye, while also still having it be his wife, and just have some really cool reveals about his wife, that literally she was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. And if we do get a season 2, I think it'd be awesome to see Linda Cardinelli suit up as Mockingbird in the series and team up with her husband. I think that would be awesome to see. But again, that is if we get a season 2. But after this, we just get some great interaction between Clint and Kate to end off the series, with them actually burning the Ronin suit on the grill, of course, because where else would you do it? And then also Kate is trying to come up with a cool superhero name for herself, and she's like, alright, what about Hawk Girl, or Hawk Eve, or Hawk Shot, and all these crazy names. And then Clint says, I have an idea, and then the series ends by flashing up the Hawkeye logo, which obviously is referring to the fact that she's going to be called Hawkeye, because that's what it is in the comics. They're both referred to as Hawkeye, which is going to be interesting if they actually are both called Hawkeye, because that could get like super duper confusing, like especially if somebody, like literally if you saw Spider-Man No Way Home, spoiler alert for that, but whenever they said Peter Parker, all 3 Peter Parkers responded. So that would be kind of confusing. And also, especially if it's like, oh, so somebody says like, oh, Hawkeye's on the way, and then the one that shows up is the one that they'd rather not see, and they'd rather see the other one. I don't know. It'll get confusing. Hopefully they explain it. But again, this is why I really want a season 2, because you get this great ending here to wrap up this season, but there's so much more that can be done here, especially in a season 2. Like, I don't want this to be the last time we see Jeremy Renner's Clint Barton. We don't know when we're going to be seeing Kate Bishop show up again. There are rumors she could pop up in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but I want to see a season 2 where you explore all of these characters once again. And like I said, like there's no confirmation of season 2. It's not like the Loki Disney Plus series, where literally one of the post-credit scenes was a pop-up thing saying Loki season 2 in development or whatever. No, we don't get that with Hawkeye season 2. Instead, our post-credit scene is Rogers the Musical, where we get the full-length production, full-length scene of Save the City from Rogers the Musical, which I'll admit is cool, but at the same time, like, super disappointing because I was waiting for like a really, really cool post-credit scene in this episode, something that possibly set up Yelena Belova with the Thunderbolts, or something that revealed Kingpin to be alive, like literally just a scene of him in the hospital or something, and he seems like he's dead, but then all of a sudden he opens his eyes and then flashes black. Like, that would have been awesome. Or even some sort of setup for the Echo spin-off series. I don't know, I just wish we got something other than that Rogers the Musical number, because again, as cool as it was, and like I do think it was a really cool idea, like, it was just so disappointing because I was looking forward to something really cool, and then they just give us that, which could have easily just been released on YouTube or whatever. But yeah. Also, another thing that I wish we could have seen here, which, I mean, I understand why they didn't do it, but it would have been also really cool, is, again, spoiler alert for Spider-Man No Way Home, but of course that movie ends with Peter Parker putting on that new classic comics-accurate red and blue Spider-Man suit and swinging through the city with snow falling down. Looks like he swings by Rockefeller Center. So it would have been awesome if he just made a quick cameo here, like literally you just look up in the sky and Kate's like, whoa, is that Spider-Man? And then yeah, like that would have been awesome. But what we did get was amazing. I absolutely loved it. It really was the perfect resolution, the perfect conclusion, the perfect denouement to the Hawkeye Disney Plus series. I'm just really, really hoping that we get a season 2. Obviously, we know we're getting the spinoff with Echo, but I don't honestly know where they're going to go in the Echo Disney Plus series, though. Because really, all I know about that character was done in this series. Like, obviously, now you've got that stuff with Kingpin, hopefully with him being alive, and you can do that in that series. But also with Kazi, I'm really hoping that maybe he turns out to be alive as well. I mean, he did look pretty dead, but... Oh no, my water filled out. Alright, whatever. But what I really want to see, though, is that darker version of Kazi. Because in the comics, Kazi is literally insane, psychotic assassin dressed up as a clown. Literally, that's his supervillain name, is the Clown. And I was super excited when we heard that character was going to be coming to the series, because I wanted to see that version of the Clown in the MCU, and we never got that. We got really the opposite of that version of Kazi. So I'd love for it to be that maybe he turns out to be alive, and then he shows up in the Echo Disney Plus series, and because of what Maya did to him, that's when he goes down this darker path and becomes the Clown. That would be amazing to see, and then of course, especially to get that team up again of Kazi and Kingpin. I would love to see that. I would absolutely love to see that. But again, Hawkeye Disney Plus series season 2, I want it. I want it so, so bad. And I'm just excited to see all of these characters return. Even Jack Duquesne as a swordsman. Now that he's finally getting into action, he said like he might join the Larfers or something. That'd be awesome to see him show up in a season 2 and have him officially become the swordsman, maybe even become a hero and get a cool classic comics accurate swordsman suit. That'd be amazing. Guys, I just absolutely love this. This is 100% my favorite MCU Disney Plus series. I cannot say enough good things about it. But yeah, what did you think about that? What did you think about the episode 6 season finale of the Hawkeye Disney Plus series? Let me know all your thoughts, theories, and predictions. Do you want a season 2 of the Hawkeye Disney Plus series? And thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I keep up to date on everything goes on in the Marvel life. Yeah, I can do this all day. Oh, I can do this all day.